Introducing Tandy's Explorer Kit line. These are great for people that like to go camping, hiking, and even our scouts. So take a look as we build through some of these beginner-based projects. We're starting today with our Level 2 Explorer Fire Starter Kit. This is going to include some basic skills, including sewing and hardware settings, so grab your required tools and let's get started. We're going to start by preparing 2 tabs using the template that's included in the paper pattern in your kit. Mark those holes, cut those lines, and get that ready to go. Start by grabbing the back piece for this next step. We're going to push the eyelets through the bottom holes from the flesh side to the grain side, and then place the stud on top, and then set the snap with your snap setter. Next, for the hole at the top that's going to create the flap, place the cap through the grain side to the flesh side, place the socket over top, and use your anvil and your snap setter to set this piece. Continue setting the hardware as is shown in this video and through the instructions with the cap and socket on the tabs, and then the rest of the snap, including the eyelet and stud, on the front of the pouch to match the hardware we installed earlier. At this point, you can snap the tabs onto the back portion of the body of your pouch. We are then going to install the rivets at the base of the body of the pouch by using a little bit of water to lightly wet form and get our pouch into a shape that's going to hold the rivets instead of stretch them. So pushing the post through the bottom and into the interior of the pouch, put the cap on, and use your anvil to set your rivets. While you've got that rivet setter out, go ahead and set the rivets at the top of the tabs on the back of your pouch piece. And now we're going to sew. This is a fairly easy project to sew. You want to start by feeding your needle through the top hole on the pouch front and through the second hole of the back piece. We're then going to lock this stitch into place by feeding your needles back through the top hole on the back piece and back through the top hole of the pouch piece, locking your stitch line into place. Loop that through once or twice and then continue using a saddle stitch all the way down to the bottom of your pouch side. Again, make sure you sew all the way down to the very bottom into the last hole on the side. From there, we're going to start sewing across the bottom. Your first stitch is going to be through a single layer in between the side and the base. This will lock your thread into the base side rather than curving it around the side. And from there into the second hole, you'll be able to go through both of those layers to be able to start sewing the base to the back. As you're coming up the last side, we're going to install the tab that's going to be able to hold a piece in the fire starter. So go ahead and fit that in wherever you'd like. It can be closer to the top, right at the middle. It's really up to you where you install this. But make sure when you do, you go through all 4 layers. The front pouch piece, both layers of your tab, and the back piece, and continue sewing up the side, locking your stitch at the top just like we did at the beginning. And there you go. You've got your fire starter or whatever you'd like to carry in here. This will unsnap so you can hook it around your belt, making it modular with the rest of the pieces we'll be making. So you can take a look at those and we'll move on to the next project. And just a quick side note, remember you can tool, stamp, and die these however you'd like to make them super personal just to you. For our next project, we will be completing the luggage tag out of this lanyard kit. We're going to start with really simple tools. This is not a difficult one to do. Grab the clear panel that's included in the kit and your needle and thread and line these up to the best of your ability. They are punched together, so you should be able to find that pretty easily. Starting at the base of the window in the middle, saddle stitch this piece to the front all the way around. Next, we're going to layer the other two pieces in the order as shown on screen and in the instructions included with your kit. Again, starting at the base, in the middle, feed your needle through and saddle stitch up to the middle of the top. Once you've reached the middle of the top, we're going to take the small tab and the D-ring and install those with a single hole stitch. This is going to allow you to clip the D-ring onto the lanyard as is part of this kit. So going through all 4 layers, lock the tab and D-ring into place and continue using a saddle stitch to sew all the way around. And with that, your luggage tag is done. You've got several pockets and a place to put all of your identifying information ready to go to keep you safe and everything with you. For our third project in this series, we'll be doing dog tags. This, again, is a very, very beginner-friendly project. You'll need a hole punch and awl and just an eyelet setter. So using the paper template included in the kit, go ahead and mark out your holes with an awl and punch those with your hole punch. Once you've got your holes punched, grab your eyelets and your eyelet setter. Typically, this comes with a anvil that's made specifically for the size of your eyelets, so make sure you grab that if you have it available. Just like you would with any other keychain, go ahead and install your split rings through the holes. If you need a little extra help, sometimes I like to use an awl to help open those up and get those back into place, and then use a pair of pliers to tighten them back up if they loosen too much. For our next step, we're going to tie the lanyard. Start by making a loop, and with the tail end, wrap it around the interior side, and then make 2 more loops, finishing by feeding the tail through the loops you've created to make a slip knot. You're going to do this on both sides, and it may take a moment to get the hang of it, but once you can see what's going on, it's pretty easy. Next, grab your spring clip and feed the opposite end through the paracord, looping it through the knots you made previously, and tighten it down onto the clasp for the spring clip. Now, clip the split ring on and you are good to go. You'll see here that we did add an extra knot in the paracord to help keep everything a little bit more stable, but that's entirely optional. For the next project in the series, we're going to put together a sunglass case. So grab your tools, grab your leather, and let's get started. We'll be installing a magnetic bag clasp, which is very similar to a snap. So grab the pieces as are indicated both in this video and in the instructions, as well as a leather washer when you install these. These come with very specific anvils that are meant to fit the design for the pieces that are included in them, so you will absolutely need those to get these installed properly. Next, we're going to install the liner to hide the caps that we already installed so they don't scratch your sunglasses. Using a pen, outline the liner as roughly as possible. Then taking your contact cement or adhesive of choice, go ahead and lay a thin layer across the liner, making sure to cover all the spaces that you've marked, as well as the back side of your sunglass case so these can adhere to each other. It'll take a few minutes for the adhesive to get tacky, so be patient with this step and make sure you get all of the areas of this leather nice and coated so it adheres well. Once the adhesive has become tacky, press both of your leather pieces together, the liner and the front piece. Using a poly roller and or a combination with a bone folder or something of that nature, make sure you get the stick as best as possible. Then, using a blade of your choice, in this case we're using scissors, go ahead and trim away any of the excess leather that you have from your liner, getting it as close to the edge of the sunglass case as possible. At this point, we need to prepare the liner. Anywhere that you have a hole on the body of the project, you need to also make a hole through the liner. So here I'm taking a hole punch to punch through where we'll be setting the rest of the magnetic bag clasp. You will also need to take your awl and punch through all of the holes that are being used for sewing in our next steps. So make sure you puncture all the way through the liner on both sides of the project. When done correctly, from the back side, you'll be able to see the holes looking like this. Now we're going to finish installing our hardware. The other half of the magnetic bag clasp will be installed at this point, similarly to the way we did the front, using the leather washers on one side and the caps on the other side. Using the anvil that it comes with, make sure to set those properly. Next, we're going to sew the sides together. This can be a little bit easier sometimes if you wet the leather slightly to help get it to hold its form, or use clips. I, however, did not do that. Much like the fire starter pouch, this is going to have a hole that locks in at the top. So you're going to feed your needle through the top hole on the front and the second hole on the back, and then lock in the top hole and continue sewing down. We are also going to install a D-ring on this one, just like we did with the luggage tag. Go ahead and feed that through, go through all 4 layers, and continue sewing downward. You will also sew the other side without adding any D-ring or tab. For our last step, lightly wet mold by wetting the veg tan leather and forming it to get it to hold closed. Once you get it closed, let it dry and you'll be good to go. At this point, you have a completed project ready to protect your sunglasses. You can add this to your lanyard or throw it in your bag, whatever seems best to you, but make sure to carry it with all of your special sunglasses. Our final project in this series is going to be a combination of some of the skills we've learned previously. Taking the fire starter pouch, similarly, we will be making a pouch that works the same, but we'll be using a magnetic bag clasp like we use on the sunglass case. So set that hardware just like we did in the previous project, and then we're going to wet mold and form our base for the pouch using rivets to hold them in place. And just like we did before, make sure that you put the rivets from the bottom up and lock those into place. We'll be sewing this together just like we did the fire starter pouch. However, I'm showing a slightly different method of locking in your top stitch. From the back piece, go ahead and feed your leather or your thread through the top hole and then down into the top hole, but back out through the second hole of the back. From there, feed the needles back and forth, passing through the top hole to lock your stitch in place, and then continue sewing. Use whatever method feels best to you and gives you both the appearance and the functionality that you prefer. At this point, we will be installing the tab and D-ring as we have for the other lanyard projects. Sew that in, going through all 4 leathers just like before, and then keep going all the way down until you get to the final hole in the side. As was done previously, we're going to go in between the base and the side, sewing through a single layer before passing those needles back through both layers to lock the corner and the base in place. Once you've got that single one done, going in between, we'll grab that bottom and go right back through both layers and continue sewing as before. Upon completing that stitch line, you have made all 5 of these Explorer Leather Kit projects. Make sure to check out what else we've got available, how these fit together, and look forward to some more advanced projects coming up soon. Happy crafting!